Alright guys, so I know today isn't typically an uploading day, right? But we've been following Dying Light 2 for a while now. I've talked about it a couple of times, talked about it on the TRSS podcast, link in description. And so they've released a couple of these developer talk things. The most recent one, they talked about the game will come out whenever the fuck it's done. And so in this most recent one that came out literally 30 minutes ago of this recording, they talked about just Q&A stuff, right? And most of it was shit like, how big is the map? You know, what's this new type of infected? You know, just stuff like that, right? But there were three questions that really stood out to me, right? And we'll go in the order of least disturbing to most disturbing, because some of this stuff really has me worried for the game. Now, eventually they get to talking about the grappling hook, and I think this dude does a really good job of describing the differences and how the grappling hook's going to operate. It might sound really stupid, but essentially he says in Dying Light 1 you're like Spider-Man, and in Dying Light 2 you're like Tarzan. And again, that might sound stupid, but that makes perfect sense to me, right? In Dying Light 1, it's a straight zip, you point it and it pulls you straight where you want to go, right? In this, it's more physics-based, or like a rope that you throw and swing on, right? That makes perfect sense. So props to this dude for making a clear comparison, or analogy, I guess is the smart people word to use. And so, again, here, I'm just kind of concerned with that, right? The movement might not be as quick and fluid as you want it to be. I can definitely see that being annoying, but I can also see that being really fun. So that's just one of the small things they brought up that I wanted to address. Again, not any huge problems with it, but it's just one of those things. But the next two really bothered me. So if you haven't played the DLC for the original Dying Light, they introduced cars, right? And it's exactly how you think a game like this would do cars. You have to maintain it and search, you know, the cars around the map for gas and parts to upgrade your car and keep it maintained. If you crash it too much, takes damage and you have to repair it. There's all types of upgrades you can do with UV lights on it and flamethrowers and all this really cool shit that worked really well in the DLC, right? And being that this map is bigger, I understand, you know, you can't just have a car in a city area because that would negate the entire purpose of parkour, which is one of the main factors of the game, right? That makes sense. But since the map is 2 times bigger of the Dying Light map, right, what you can do is have rooftop areas and then give the player access to cars in the more open and fieldy and those types of areas. My point is, this dude fucking says there's no cars in this game. And this is something that I've talked about before, right? That something like Call of Duty, they do this shit all the time where they do something and they do it well, and then they just fucking don't carry it over to their next game. And it makes, for Call of Duty, at least makes a little bit of sense because those games are fucking pushed out like mobile games every year, and they don't have time to implement what they did last year because the game's already 90% done. But with this game, with the big ass gap that's been between these two games, and you see how good the cars worked in that game, and just they fit the world and they worked well. It was immersive, it was interesting, it was new, and with a big map, it could have worked even better. But they're not putting them in the game, and that really pisses me off. But the next one pisses me off even more, because I think it might ruin the game entirely. So this is my reason for making the video. As you can see in the question, and probably in the subtitles, they ask, will there be guns in Dying Light 2? I obviously thought this was a stupid question when first reading it, because obviously there's gonna be fucking guns. There were guns in the first one, there's guns in Dead Island, there's guns in every zombie game. But this man says there's no guns. And his explanation is that the world has collapsed, right? It's in the future, and so there's no one to make guns, right? If the government, if just everything went to shit in real life, right now, there would be so many fucking guns laying around for so long. This would not happen, alright? You know how many fucking guns there are in the world? And so this is like the core dynamic of any fucking zombie game, is you introduce the player to zombies, right? Just the walkers, the slow ones, the one hit, and you give them really shitty weapons like planks and boards, all that stuff, hammers. Then you introduce them to tougher zombies, giving them better weapons like machetes and swords and katanas, all of that stuff. Then you introduce some, you know, enemies with pistols, and just to change it up from not fighting zombies for the whole fucking game. Then after that, you go back to zombies, introduce tougher zombies, that's where you get into the modding of the weapons and getting really cool and high caliber weapons, as well as using the guns to fight the higher level zombies. Then you introduce the really high level enemies that have assault rifles and hunting rifles and sniper rifles and shotguns and all this really powerful stuff, grenades. Then you take that and you implement it back into the zombie shit and introduce an even harder zombie, and you just keep doing that infinitely until you get to the end of the fucking game. That makes sense. Here, it's just going to be zombies the whole time, and there's going to be people, right? He says one of the other questions is there are bandits and people that you have to fight, but if you play Dying Light 1, fighting people with melee weapons was fucking terrible, right? They dodge so incredibly fast, the hitboxes are so bad, you can't interrupt their attacks unless you have a fucking gun. The guns were the best part of the people versus people combat in Dying Light, right? And so obviously, this pisses me off, because now I'm worried for Dying Light 2, right? It's been delayed, and, usually that's never a good sign. But now we're hearing all of this, and it's officially on my this could be Cyberpunk radar now. So I just wanted to get that out there, let out my anger on the world, and I hope you guys feel the same way. Let me know down in the comments below, and I'll see you on the next one.